hrvatskog ulaska u Europsku uniju 1. srpnja u Budimpešti razgovaram sa premijerom Viktorom Orbanom, jednom od najistaknutijih glasova u suvremenoj Europi, često sa izdvojenim mišljenjem. Mr. Orban, thank you very much for talking to me today. Last time when we spoke in a setting like this, it was 13 years ago in 2000, and your country joined EU 3 years after that, and Croatia had to wait for another 10 years. At that time, would you expect for it to take such a long time?
May I just approach that question from another angle? It would have been the interest of the European Union to let us earlier joining or step into the European Union. Otherwise, in that case, the European Union would have been far stronger financially as well when the crisis of the global economic system arrived.
You think about Croatia also?
So I think Croatia and Hungary as well. You know, when I'm speaking about Hungary and Central Europe, Croatia is part of that concept because we belong to the same historical area from Poland down Czech Republic, Slovakia, Hungary, and Croatia. So that's what we call Central Europe. And in our mind, and in my personal mind as well, that approach to the European politics, which is concentrating on Central Europe, is the basis. So that's the first point. The slow integration process was against the interest of the European civilization. So it was a mistake. So that was the reason why I was always on the part of the argument that we should accelerate the process of Croatia and providing the chance for the Croatian people to the European Union.
Yeah. Who was against at that time? I mean, there has been some time already passed, so maybe you can tell us who was against speedy accession and why?
This is a new experience for you as Croats, because you as Croats and we as Hungarians like to speak in a clear-cut way. But this is not a European one. So in the European Union, nobody says no. This word is deleted. What they can say, we have to consider more. We need some more information. We have to collecting some additional information. And we have to study a little bit the effects. So if somebody would like to slow down or to avoid, never say slow down or no, but rather that complicated European political language. This is one of the reasons why the European people don't like the European Union, because they don't understand the language we use. So you have to live with the fact that nobody will never identify those countries who were against you, because there was no discussion on a Croat-style cooperation and speaking. So therefore, rather the behavior of certain states could be an evidence who was against your quick integration. But finally, we should see the positive side of the story, because you are accepted. So finally, we who were always committed to you convinced those who were against it, or let's say they were reluctant, let's be more European. So finally we convinced them that they should vote yes, and it's happened.
But what was the reason? I mean, I remember that, for instance, Carl Bildt was always promoting the idea that all the countries of the former Yugoslavia should enter together. I suppose he was not alone in this idea. Was this the reason that we should enter all together? Or?
The problem is not based on nationalities. So it's not because you are Croat. So you should understand that the European Union is very pro-Croat. So we love you. I mean, not the Hungarians, but Europe as such has a very positive perception on the Croats, because you have a big history. You know, it's a great history. You have a nice country, and you have a lot of successes, sports, culture, and so on. So you are a highly respected nation in the European Union. So the counter-arguments were not based on nationalities. The arguments was based on more the economic crisis. So generally speaking, in the European Union, those who are in are terrified to accelerate the integration process, because we have less and less money, and they have more and more domestic political difficulties. And because some of the segments, some of the groups of the society are against further enlargement, politicians tend to follow that line as well. So it's more political, domestic politically based, and economic based situation. So, you should feel yourself as a welcomed nation.
Yes, we do now. But we were not that big bite, if you are saying, like, we were not that big risk. It's a country of only 4.5 million people.
That was one of my arguments.
And before there was Bulgaria and Romania, who are much bigger and economically less so. But nevertheless, it's now finally we are entering.
Yeah,
it was a long wait, 24
may I
years.
just one point in that? There was just only one remark we always rejected, but it's very common in the European Union. You should work a little bit to change it, because Croatia was considered a so-called Western Balkan country, which is historically unfair. So this is not the case. So you're not part of the Balkan, you are part of the traditional Central European region of the European Union.
Yes, I agree totally. We had that politics in the beginning, but somehow maybe from pressure from some countries we changed it and accepted the Western Balkans. I remember because I'm a long time.
Technically it's okay, but strategically no.
Yes, we should
if I
get
may
back to
say that.
Okay, it's up to the politicians, so I will not comment on that. But you said that at this accession period you somehow swam against the tides somehow. But nowadays you are doing more or less the same in Europe. You are swimming sometimes against the tide. Is it difficult to fight, for instance, is it difficult to fight bankers in today's Europe?
Yes. and the reason is very simple. Everybody in the European Union, to a certain extent even the Hungarians, were educated on a very simple basis thinking on politics. Look at what's going on in the Western European countries. They are rich, there's a welfare state, more comfortable and higher level of standard of living than we have. We belong to the Soviet Union dominated area. Look what's going on, it's bad. So therefore it's easy to answer the question, what should be done? We should follow what the Westerners are doing. So that was easy, but it's over. The world has changed. So if you look at what's going on in the West European economies, how they lose their competitiveness, how the welfare state is not maintainable anymore, and what kind of public disorder and discontent is coming up to the surface again and again, we can't say to the Hungarian people, do exactly what the Westerners are doing. Because there are some elements which are good, and there are some elements which is proved to be not maintainable in longer term. So therefore, my concept is that each nation who does not belong to Eurozone, that's an important point, because we have our own currency, so we have independent economic policy. So those countries who are not part of the currency zone should have their own economic strategy. And I think there are a lot of coincidences of the interest of the Central Europeans, so we should think about not just a special Hungarian economic strategy, but probably a Central European strategy as well. Look what's going on now. If you put together the growth rate of Poland, Slovakia, Hungary, and a little bit stagnating but still positive Czech Republic, it's obvious that without that region, there would be no economic growth inside the European Union. So the background is the German industry, of course, but at the same time, we Central Europeans help the European Union being above 0% of economic growth. So economic growth now is coming from Central Europe. So therefore, we have to have our own economic strategy and policy. It's not always loved by the Westerners. It's different. So when a new element appears in a framework, a lot of questions come up to the surface. They can suffer some hurt and insult of their interest. This is the case sometimes. And the West European citizens raise the question why we don't do exactly what the Central Europeans are doing. You know, I was the first prime minister who introduced the bank taxation. And now the majority is doing that. Some taxation of the multinational companies, as we say, a more fair sharing of burden in the society. That was an initiative of ours, but now it's very common. So I think Central European countries, if they are successful, which is the precondition, can provide some pattern and instruments how to think in a modern way about the world economy.
When you talk about Central Europe as a motor of new development, and you are counting Croatia in, as I understood, so do you have any concrete propositions on the table to bilateral economical cooperation, some projects with Croatia, because now we are entering the European Union, there is some funds that could be drawn out. Can you tell us what is on the table right now?
Do you remember what kind of initiatives we have done? When I was first-time Prime Minister, we have a chance to see each other even that time in 2000. Yes, and Hungary at that time made a lot of agreements with that time your government, how to cooperate on electricity, energy, and that kind of issue. So we are very open. But what is interest of the Croat people and the state of Croatia is the job of the Croat people and the Croat politicians. So what we can say that we are open to them to find a way how to cooperate ever closer.
But it seems like the response is not as you would expect it. Are you kind of maybe disappointed after the big support that you were given to Croatia in the final the months of the accession, with the development that happened after that, with INAMOL issue and some comments of the financial minister, which were pretty harsh. Like, were you disappointed at that time? And what's the situation right now?
You know, we are not happy with that, of course. But my point is that we should not raise the level of discussion to the political leaders. So we should consider that issue more as a business issue, and to have the leadership of the companies to find a way how they can coexist and cooperate. If you raise it to the higher level of political life, you know, we can cause some harm in the political relationship, which is excellent between Croatia and Hungary. And I think your prime minister and your leadership tried to treat this whole issue as a friendly way, in a strong national approach, of course, no question of that, but at the same time in the spirit of cooperation. So I think the CEO, the company leaders level is the proper way where decisions should be made and solutions should be found.
Let's come back to the European issue. What went wrong with the European? I mean, obviously there is a crisis, there is people on the street. So I asked one of your colleagues, Prime Minister, before, this is like a symbolical question, who's to blame, greedy bankers or the lazy Greeks? But what's your opinion? I mean,
I have a little bit more sophisticated approach to that point. So if you look at the history of this crisis, it's very simple. The crisis broken out in the United States. And the crisis was created by United States financial institutions. The question is not who created the crisis, but how we can react on that. And in the reaction, the European Union proved to be rather poor. So what is going on is basically a reorganization, a resharing of the world market, of the world trade system. So the whole global political and economic system is resharing or redistributing at this moment. Asians are coming up, and so on and so on. So the crisis is just a phenomena showing that there is no sense to, there is no reasonable sense to look for short-term solutions, because what is going on is a deeper process. So the question is, why in the crisis time the European Union proved to be uncompetitive compared to the competitive Chinese, Asians, and Latin Americans, and even the United States? This is the real question. The answer is that many of the European Union countries neglected that approach, and therefore they haven't managed major economic structural reforms, or what we call here in Hungary, renewal of the countries. So when everything is moving and under reorganization, each actor, like Hungary and other countries, must reorganize and renew its old structures. Otherwise, we cannot be competitive. It's a very difficult job. It's controversial. A lot of disputes. Not only winners, not only people on the winning side, but there are on the loser side. So it's politically very complicated. And somehow we lost a decade inside the European Union to do that renewal. That's the process which is going on, hopefully, with a good conclusion.
Okay, so to the last question, this crisis has also brought divisions to the Europe. That's beyond doubt. So what's going to be the future? At the same point, we are discussing United States of Europe, but on the other hand, we had more divisions between North and South. We have Europe of two speeds. We have old and new members. So how do you see it in the future? What will happen? Will we have more European integration, or will we have more divisions, or will we have both? More European integration and then more discrepancy within the national countries?
First of all, may I just say something about our wishes? So we have a vision on the European Union as the union of the nations. So no United States of Europe or something like that, because we are Hungarians. National sovereignty is very important. We are ready to exercise certain segments of our national sovereignty with others, but we would like to keep it. There's a simple question, finally, to all the people, at least for those who are thinking on the framework of the future of their nations. Who will govern us? We ourselves or somebody else? And our answer is we would like to govern ourselves. So no United States of Europe. But at the same time, the real process which is going on is that those countries who belong to the Eurozone should intensify and even accelerate their cooperation and deepening their integration. So if you have common currency with others, it's difficult to maintain your own sovereignty as those can do who are not part of the currency zone. So what I expect in the future is that there will be an ever deeper cooperation of those countries who belong to the Eurozone as a common currency zone, and we who are not part of it, we have to find a reasonable relationship with that new core of the European Union.
Okay, if you are coming to the celebrations to Zagreb, I wish you a happy trip and a good stay there and many happy returns. And thank you very much for this conversation.
It's always a pleasure to be in your wonderful capital.
Yes, nice to talk to you again.